They say monsters live under the bed. But in my story, the monster lives inside my own family. My name is Marcus Reed. I'm 36 years old. And I'm serving life in prison, not because I hurt anyone, but because I trusted the wrong people to protect the ones I loved. Every night, when these steel bars close around me, I see the same picture in my mind. My little nephew, barely 10 years old, smiling up at the man everyone calls his guardian. But I know the truth. That man is the devil in disguise. And while I sit here rotting in this cell, he's out there, tucking my nephew into bed, whispering lies, smiling like he's the perfect father. That's my punishment. That's my torture. Not just the prison walls, but the knowledge that the real monster walks free. The cell is quiet tonight. Only the distant echoes of men shouting, steel doors clanging, and boots stomping down the corridor. But even that chaos feels lighter compared to the storm inside me. I lean my head against the cold wall, close my eyes, and let the memories come back. They always do. The day my life changed. The day I was branded a criminal while the real guilty man slipped away like a ghost. People think prison takes away your freedom. That's true. But what they don't understand is that prison also traps your thoughts. You can't escape them. They replay again and again, like an endless film you can't turn off. And my film begins with family. Because that's where the monster was hiding all along. It was a Sunday evening. The kind of evening you'd think belonged to laughter, food, and warmth. My sister, Clara, had invited us all to dinner at her house. She wanted us to be a family again, after months of tension. Her husband, Richard, sat at the head of the table. Everyone loved him. Neighbors admired his charm, his politeness, the way he carried himself. They called him a good man, a provider, a father figure. But I never trusted his smile. It was too perfect, too polished. And whenever my nephew, Jamie, came close, Richard's eyes changed for just a flicker. A shadow would pass through them, cold and calculating. I noticed it. I always noticed it. But my sister? She was blind to it. That night, as Jamie laughed while telling me about his school soccer match, I caught Richard staring. Not like a father. Not like an uncle. Something else. Something dark. And that's when the monster revealed itself to me. Not with claws or teeth, but with a smile that hid poison. The warning nobody believed. After dinner, I pulled Clara aside. "Clara, listen to me," I whispered, gripping her hand. "Something's wrong with Richard. I see the way he looks at Jamie. It's not right." Her face went pale, then hardened with anger. "Marcus, stop. You always hated him. Just because you never had what he has, a family, a good life, you want to ruin mine." Her words cut deeper than any knife. I wasn't jealous. I was terrified. "Clara, I swear to you, he's not who you think he is. Please, listen before it's too late." But she yanked her hand away, shaking her head. "If you ever say this again, you'll never see Jamie again." I stood there, stunned. The woman who was supposed to protect her child chose to protect her husband instead. That was the first night I felt truly powerless. Days turned into weeks, and my fears grew. Richard started pushing me away from Jamie's life. Every time I visited, he found an excuse. Every time I called, Clara said they were busy. And then, the storm came. One late evening, police lights flashed outside my apartment. I opened the door to see two officers standing there. Marcus Reed. Yes. You're under arrest for child endangerment and attempted assault. The world spun. What? No. This is a mistake. But my words didn't matter. They cuffed me, dragged me down the stairs, and pushed me into the back of their car. My neighbors watched, whispering, shaking their heads. I could see Richard at the end of the street, holding Jamie close, pretending to be the protective father. His eyes met mine, and in them I saw victory. He had set me up, and I walked right into his trap. The courtroom was packed. Reporters scribbled notes, cameras clicked, and strangers stared at me as if I were already guilty. The prosecutor painted me as a bitter uncle who couldn't stand his brother-in-law's success. They said I was jealous. They said I was dangerous. They said I had tried to hurt Jamie. And then came the worst part. My sister, Clara, took the stand. When the judge asked if she believed I was capable of harming Jamie, she looked at me with tears in her eyes, and said, yes. He always hated Richard. He was obsessed with protecting Jamie. I'm afraid of what Marcus might do. My heart shattered. That was the moment I knew. I had lost. Not just the trial, not just my freedom, but my family. Marcus Reed, you are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment. The words echoed like a death sentence. Life. For a crime I never committed. As the guards pulled me away, I searched the crowd for Clara. She avoided my eyes. But Richard looked straight at me. And that perfect smile returned. The smile of a man who had destroyed me, and gotten away with it. I open my eyes, back in the cell. My hands are trembling, my jaw clenched. The memories feel as fresh as yesterday. The monster is free. And every night, when Jamie lays down to sleep, it's that monster who kisses him goodnight. That's the nightmare I live with. That's the reason I don't fear these prison walls. I fear what's happening outside them. Because I know the truth. And the truth is, the real monster tucks my nephew into bed. They took away my freedom. But they couldn't take away my memory. And that's what tortures me every single night. Inside this cage, men fight for survival. But me, I'm fighting with ghosts. The ghost of my sister's betrayal. The ghost of my nephew's laughter. The ghost of that monster's smile. The clang of the iron gates was deafening. When they pushed me inside the prison for the first time, I felt the air shift. The stench of sweat, rot, and hopelessness hit me like a wave. Inmates stared like vultures circling a wounded animal. Some whispered, some laughed. Everyone knows. Everyone hears the stories before you even step foot inside. Child endangerment. Attempted assault. Two labels that make you a target the second you enter. Fresh meat. One of them muttered. Won't last a month, another sneered. I held my head high, but inside, I was breaking. Not because I feared them, but because I feared that while I was walking into hell, Richard was walking into my nephew's bedroom, tucking him in with that same poisonous smile. The games of survival. Prison isn't about justice. It's about survival. Every second is a test. Every glance can be a challenge. Every silence can turn into violence. My first fight happened within a week. A man twice my size cornered me in the cafeteria, his fist slamming into my tray. Hey, uncle, he spat. You like kids, huh? Laughter erupted around me. I snapped. My fist connected with his jaw before my mind could stop me. The sound of bone cracking echoed through the hall. The guards rushed in, dragging us apart. I was thrown into solitary for a week. And in that darkness, lying on the cold floor with nothing but my thoughts, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. I was fighting not to lose myself. Because if I broke, Richard would win. Prison runs on routine. Wake up, count, eat, work, sleep. But once a month, something shattered that routine. Mail call. I lived for those moments. Hoping, praying, begging for a letter from my sister. From Jamie. From anyone who still believed me. The first letter finally came. My heart pounded as I ripped it open. It was from Clara. Marcus, please stop writing. You need to accept your sentence. Richard is taking care of Jamie. He's safe. He's happy. Let it go. I read those words 100 times. Each one burned deeper than the last. Safe. Happy. No. He wasn't safe. He wasn't happy. He was trapped in the monster's house, while I was trapped here. Months later, Clara finally visited. I was escorted into the visitation room, my wrists chained, my heart hammering. When she walked in, she looked different, weaker, tired, like guilt was gnawing at her. Marcus, she whispered, sitting across from me. Clara, I breathed, leaning forward. Please, listen to me. Richard isn't who you think he is. Jamie isn't safe with him. You know it, deep down. That's why you can't sleep at night. Tears welled in her eyes, but she shook her head. I can't do this. Richard has everyone convinced. The neighbors, the church, the police. If I say anything, they'll destroy me. They'll destroy Jamie. I slammed my fists on the table, the chains rattling. Don't you see? He's already destroying him. Every day you stay silent, you're feeding him to the monster. The guard barked. That's enough. Clara stood up, her shoulders trembling. She couldn't look me in the eyes. That was the last time she ever came. Prison isn't just enemies. Sometimes, you find unlikely allies. My cellmate, Rico, was a lifer like me. Tough, scarred, a man who had killed more than once. But he had a code. And he could see right through me. You don't belong here, Marcus, he said one night, as we lay in our bunks. I was framed, I whispered. He chuckled. Every man in here says that. Not like me. The guy who did this, he's in my family. And he's raising my nephew. Rico was silent for a long time. Then he muttered, That'll eat you alive. Don't let it. If you can't get out, find another way to fight. His words stuck with me. Another way to fight. Years passed. Seasons changed. My hair grew gray. My body toughened. But one thing never changed, the obsession. Every night, I pictured Jamie's face. Every night, I imagined Richard's smile hovering over him like a shadow. Every night, I replayed the trial, Clara's betrayal, the judge's sentence. Some men in here dream of freedom. Others dream of revenge. Me. I dream of saving Jamie. Even if it means rotting in here forever. I will find a way to make the truth known. The whisper. One night, as I lay in my bunk, Rico leaned down. Marcus, you ever heard of a man named Holloway? No. Why? He runs a network inside and outside these walls. Smuggles letters, gets messages through. For the right price, he can get your voice heard on the outside. My pulse quickened. This was it. My chance. If the system wouldn't listen, maybe the people would. Maybe I could send out my story, my truth. Maybe someone would hear me. Maybe Jamie would. I clung to that whisper like a drowning man clings to air. That night, I had the worst dream of my life. I saw Jamie, older now, sitting at a dinner table. Richard was next to him, his arm draped casually over the chair. Clara was gone. The house was dark. Jamie looked at me, his eyes hollow. "Uncle Marcus," he whispered, "why didn't you save me?" I jolted awake, sweat soaking my shirt, my heart racing. It wasn't just a dream. It was a warning. Back to reality. The prison bell rings, dragging me back to reality. Men shuffle past my cell, laughing, fighting, cursing. But I barely hear them. My mind is on fire. Because I know this. I may be behind bars, but I am not powerless. And as long as Jamie is out there, as long as that monster is tucking him into bed, I will fight. Even if it takes the rest of my life. The day they told me I'd never see freedom again, I thought my story had ended. But life has a strange way of writing its chapters. You see, even behind bars, the truth whispers. And sometimes, it screams. That scream came to me one night, in the dead silence of my cell. It was a crumpled piece of paper, slipped under my cell door by a guard who owed me a favor. My hands shook as I opened it. The words were simple, but they cut through me like a blade. The monster lives free. He tucks your nephew into bed every night. And he laughs, knowing you rot here. I froze. My heart stopped. My breath caught in my throat. I read it again. And again. Each time, the pain grew sharper. Because I knew exactly who they meant. Not a stranger. Not some shadowy figure. No, it was him. The one who had whispered lies to my sister. The one who had painted me guilty. The one who had built his perfect little life while mine rotted behind iron bars. My brother-in-law. The devil himself, still free. I slammed my fist against the concrete wall of my cell. The other inmates stirred, cursing at me, but I didn't care. All I could see was my sister's face. And my nephew's innocent smile. What kind of world lets a monster tuck a child into bed while the innocent rot in hell? Tell me, what would you do? Would you accept your fate? Or would you fight, even from inside a cage? That night, I made a promise. Not to the judge. Not to my sister. Not even to myself. But to my nephew. One day, I would make sure the truth was known. One day, I would drag the mask off the monster who smiled at him like a father, but carried the blood of betrayal on his hands. I swore it. And when a man swears in the darkness of a prison cell, it becomes the only light he has left. Days blurred into weeks. Weeks into months. The food still tasted like dirt. The walls still smelled of sweat and rust. The screams of men beaten by guards still echoed in the night. But I changed. I became sharper. Colder. Every hour I wasn't sleeping, I was thinking, planning. I traded food for favors. I whispered questions through the bars. And slowly, the picture came together. One inmate, an old man with scars down his arms, leaned close to me one night. "Careful, kid," he said. "Monsters don't die easy. They wear suits. They sit at tables. They drink wine while others drink blood. If you go after him, you better be ready to finish it." His words carved into my soul. I didn't reply, but inside, I already knew. I would finish it. It was a Tuesday, ordinary to anyone else. But in prison, Tuesday became the day fate cracked open. A fight broke out in the yard, small at first, then roaring like wildfire. Chains clashed. Guards shouted. Men screamed. And in that chaos, a door opened. Not for freedom. Not yet. But for me to slip a letter out, carried in the shoe of a man being released the next morning. That letter carried one name, one warning, one truth. And with it, I began to stitch the cracks in the lies. Months later, word came back. My sister had read it. She knew now. At least, part of her did. But instead of visiting me, instead of asking questions, she stayed silent. Her silence screamed louder than any words. Because silence, when the truth is known, is betrayal all over again. Tell me, if your own blood chose lies over you, would you still call them family? I didn't need to break walls to escape. I needed the truth to break them for me. Piece by piece, witness by witness, the story unfolded. And when the day of my retrial finally came, the courtroom smelled of polished wood and cheap perfume. The judge sat high, unmoved. My sister avoided my eyes. And there he was. The monster. The man who had tucked my nephew into bed every night. Smiling, as if he'd already won. But this time, he hadn't planned on the evidence. He hadn't planned on the witnesses I'd fought tooth and nail to gather. He hadn't planned on the world hearing the truth. The gavel slammed. Case dismissed. You are free. Free. The word tasted strange on my tongue. I looked at him. For a moment, I thought of running across the room and tearing him apart with my bare hands. For a moment, I thought of making him bleed like he'd made me bleed. But then I saw my nephew. Small. Innocent. Eyes wide, caught between lies and truth. And I realized, my revenge wasn't his death. It was his downfall. It was my freedom. It was walking out of that courtroom while he stayed behind, drowning in the truth. Moral reflection. Emotional ending. Now, as I sit here telling you my story, I understand something. Life doesn't always punish monsters when you want it to. Sometimes, it punishes them when it hurts most. And me. I learned never to trust blindly. Even smiles can hide knives. Even family can become strangers. But I also learned something else. That no matter how deep the darkness, truth will always find its way to light. Direct call to action. Emotional trigger for viewers. So I'll ask you this. What would you do if the very people you trusted betrayed you? Would you forgive them? Would you seek revenge? Or would you walk away, knowing the truth itself is the greatest weapon? Tell me in the comments below. Because maybe your story is not so different from mine. And if you want more stories like this, real stories of betrayal, survival, and redemption, subscribe now and join me on this journey. Because my story may be over, but yours might just be beginning.